Welcome back. Our next guest is a true legend in the world of film, TV, and all things music. Randy-Edelman has conducted some of the biggest orchestras, written super hits for chart-topping pop stars, as well as scored for over 100 blockbuster films and TV shows. Randy, it's such an honor to have you join us.
It's nice to be here.
So you grew up right across the river in New Jersey.
I grew up right across the river in New Jersey.
What role did music have in your life growing up? And how did that affect you to where you are today?
Well, I started kind of playing the piano, I guess, when I was 4 or 5, going to the piano, picking out tunes that I had heard on the television or wherever it was. So I started when I was very young. But I kind of, wanted to be like all the other kids. And at that time, if you were a kid, what did you want? You wanted to play sports. That was the only thing that was happening.
Right.
So I was very quiet, even though I started taking lessons and had a traditional classical background. I was very serious about what I did, but I really didn't tell anybody. I'd come home and practice. And so this was a constant thing when I grew up, but I didn't let it be known. I didn't play in the school orchestra or anything like that. But it was always there, and there was something that I had a huge interest in. But of course, my parents being from there and a typical family there, they wanted me to be, guess what, a dentist.
Get out.
I swear to God.
Was there anyone in your family that was a dentist?
Yeah, there was. We called him Killer Cousin Bob.
Uh-oh.
Because when he drilled, or he never used Novocaine. Anyway, so that's just a little aside there. But so I grew up like everybody else. We rarely came into the city. That was a big deal. You'd say, how come you didn't come in the city? Living right in Teaneck across the bridge. But we didn't, So that's I grew up just fairly normally, except I had this thing that I did. And people that were close friends of mine in my family, of course, knew, because if you walked by my house, you always heard the piano going. But it was traditional, serious, classical music, And so that went way back.
It's such an amazing ability to be able to hear music and transcribe that onto a piano. How did you realize that you could do this?
Well, that's sort of a natural ability. You either can do it. There are great musicians who can't compose music, and there are wonderful composers of all kinds who aren't good musicians. So, there's all kinds of ways, but as far as composing music and hearing something, we're not talking about film scoring now, that's a different craft. But you kind of have to feel something in your gut, just like songwriting. Songwriting, you can write a great song in 5 minutes. You can't write a symphony or a film score in 5 minutes. It's a different kind of thing, and I think anybody that does it well, there has to be something, you have to have that passion and that ability, or, it's just something that should be there, and that gives you a leg up. Then the training and being at the right place at the right time and being able to utilize what you've learned, that all comes into being. But that initial kind of gut feeling, usually that's something that is a natural thing. And some people have it and don't develop it, and others do. So I was kind of fortunate that I went in many directions and it all kind of came together.
You brought up scoring. I'm so curious of how that all comes together. What's the process like for you?
Well, okay, scoring is totally different. Some people, since I did write a lot of songs years ago when I started, because that's what was happening at the time, they think there's a correlation between the two. There's not. When you're scoring a film, you have to have the craft down, your orchestration, and you have to write a lot of music under a lot of pressure in no time. So
interesting, right? And so the earlier years of writing music, and any funny stories of celebrities or pop stars that we know that you want to share with us?
I have too many to go into. But I mean, my stories, I have many stories, and they go on a bit too long for what I've been told is our time here. There's a story about a song that I wrote for a guy named Barry Manilow. Now, did I write it for him? No, I never write anything for anybody's first songs. I write a song, and then I record it on my album or something, and somehow it gets out in the world by lots of artists. But the story about this guy, I'll be really quick about it. Try to be. My first job out of music conservatory was at a place called Upstairs at the Downstairs. It was on 56th Street, believe me, long before you were born. Upstairs was a topical review of events of the day. It was about the time of the Woodstock thing. Downstairs was a comedian named Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers had a piano player, a guy she would say a joke and they would go, ba-dum-bum, and the people would laugh. That was it. I maybe met the guy once. Okay, cut. A little while later, I started writing songs, was taking them around to people, to play them for publishers. So I went to this one publisher, I played them a bunch of songs, and they stopped me during one song. And they said, forget that, that's like a waltz. Nobody writes waltzes anymore. So I got mad, I said a few expletives to the guy, slammed my little attaché case, I had a little tie on, and walked out down the street. True story. It's it's the summer, it's hot. I have to catch the A train to take the subway across the bridge, because where was I living? I was living at my mother's house, because I didn't have it. Okay, and I'm walking up to the subway, rushing, and I smack into somebody, and I say, oh God, I'm sorry, and I look up, and who is it? It's the guy who was playing piano a year or two before for Joan Rivers. But he had since started recording it. He just had a big hit record. So I said, he said, what are you doing? Because he knew me a little. I said, well, I'm, taking these songs around. He said, well, send me some songs. And I said, well, you write your own songs. And he said, yeah, but I'm with a record label, and they don't think I know what's happening. So I always have to do a couple of outside songs. That a guy named Clive Davis, who was head of Arista Records at the time, he picks 2 songs, and then he lets you write the other 8. Okay. So I give him the song, and I said, I'm going to give you a song, but I just played it for somebody, and they thought it was terrible. It's a waltz. He said, I love waltzes. I send it over. I'm making the story short. It was Weekend in New England, and within a couple of weeks, it was a #1 record.
Wow. That is a great story.
I cut it short.
And I wish I could hear all the other amazing stories. Randy, thank you so much for coming in.
It was great to be here.
Great to meet you and to have
nice
you on
to
the
meet
show.
You. Take care of your teeth.
Always.
All right.
We'll be right back after the break.